Hello, this is Noreen from Joy Cards and welcome to my YouTube channel. Yay! For more of my Stampin' Up! Card videos, please like and subscribe, hit that little bell, and you'll be notified when my videos release. So now let's go make a card. Hello everybody, today I'm going to show you 5 cards. We're going to make one complete card and I'm going to show you tricks on some others that I did. And we're using Blessings of the Home bundle. So we've got the stamp set here, which are really 2 big flower dies and some sentiments. And then the dies are the outline of the flowers and then a bunch of like branches and flowers and stuff. So let me show you first what the dies look like. So I first cut out all the dies except for the outlines here. And what you're going to notice is that there's not 2 of the same thing. So it's not like there's this one going this way and another one going the other direction. So unless you're doing a circle and put them all around, you're not going to get, a complete, mirror of the other. So, and then you've got these flowers and there's some flower buds here. And I'm going to show you a card where I'm going to do a technique with the coloring of this. So now let's see the stamps. Now here's the stamps. Now basically this is a flower coloring stamp set. The rest of the sentiments I don't need to worry about stamping out, and the 2 big flowers you're going to need to use your Stamparatus. That's why I have them up on my plates here, because there's just way too much detail in here to do it on a block. I mean, you might get lucky and might be okay, but I wouldn't do it. And then also bring out your StazOn, because if you're going to do any kind of coloring, you don't want any of that black to bleed into your colors. So it's time to use your StazOn. And this is what they look like stamped out. They're really pretty. They have all kinds of detail to them. That's why I said don't use the block, but they're really quite pretty. And you can go ahead and leave them on your piece like this, or you can use the outlines and cut them out. So now let's get to coloring. Okay, so the first type of coloring we're going to do is with the Stampin' Blends. Now, I did originally try to do the coloring with just taking the ink off the stamp pad and all, but I just didn't like how it was turning out and I abandoned it. It was a lot of time and it didn't look all that great. And then, of course, you can't use daubers because it's too big. You can't use colored pencils because or colored pastels because, like I said, there's too much detail. But let's start with the Stampin' Blends. This is, and throughout all my cards, I use the same kind of colors. I use some Daffodil Delight, Magenta Madness, Fresh Frieza, and the Granny Apple Green. So I kind of stuck to those colors. And you can make a million different color combinations, so you can have totally different results. But this first one, what I did is I outlined only. And I left everything blank, and it actually looks really nice. So this is obviously Magenta Madness, and this is Granny Apple Green, Fresh Frieza here, and I didn't put anything in the middles, and it turned out really cool. I really kind of like that. And then you can do it another way where you can fill the whole flower in, and I can show you how to do that as well. And then the second coloring technique that worked is colored pencils. So here's colored pencils, and I used a Granny Apple Green, Melon Mambo, Daffodil Delight, and Early Espresso, and then I used my blending pen, and it was okay. But what was even better was when I used the same colors here, I omitted the middle part with the Early Espresso, and I used the paintbrush. And this was fantastic, and I'm going to show you how to do this technique as well. So we're going to be doing one with the Stampin' Blends and one with the colored pencils. So here's the first flower, and I stamped this with the Stamparatus in StazOn. So that, you definitely want to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the dark Daffodil Delight. And there is kind of a trick to coloring this flower, and that is outlining. So I'm going to outline the few things here that I'm going to do in dark Daffodil Delight and go ahead and color them all in and just make them really nice and dark. And they're going to lighten up as we go on. And then I'm going to grab the middles of these teeny little flowers here and in here. And you definitely want to start with the middles when you do any kind of flower, because sometimes they just kind of get overlooked and muddied up. So there's my Daffodil Delight. Now I'm going to take my dark magenta madness, and I'm going to make these 3 flowers here in this color. So like I said, the key to this flower is outlining. So I'm going to outline in dark magenta madness, and then I'm going to do the lines here, and then I'm going to do some more lines going up like this. Okay, do the second one, do a full outline, do the line like that, and then some more lines like this. Okay, now I'm going to finish the whole flower, and I'll be right back. So while I was doing the outline, I went ahead and did the other 2 as well. Now I'm going to take my light magenta madness and go over the dark and into the white area and just kind of layer it. I think these pens are more like layering pens and blending pens. Just, you know, they're different from a Copic. But they do, you know, they do layer nicely. So, and I'm going to go ahead and put them over like that. So I'm going to do the rest of the flowers. I'll be right back. So I've done the light, and like I said, these are layering pens more than blending, in my opinion. So that's the first time. Now I'm going to do it again, so there's not such a harsh line between the light and the dark. So I'm going to give it another layer. Now we're done with the pink flower. We're going to go and take our dark fresh Frieza and do all the other flowers. So like the other one, we're going to outline first and then fill up part of the middle. So outline, fill up, outline, outline, fill up, outline, like that. So I'm going to do that to all the flowers. Now we've got all of our dark fresh Frieza. I'm going to go in with the light and just fill in the flower. Now I filled in all the light. I'm actually going to do the opposite of what I did for the pink one here. I'm going to go in with the dark and do the lines. Just because these are so small, it just kind of works out that way. So I'm just going to put in some detail on all the lines in the flowers. Lastly, we're going to go in with the dark granny apple green, and we are going to do what we did with the flowers. We're going to outline and put in all the veins for the leaves in the dark. Now the little ones, you know, you're not going to get much of a light in there, but just go ahead and fill it in with dark. So I'm going to go ahead and outline all these, and I'll be back again. And then lastly, take your light granny apple green and go ahead and layer that over the dark, just like so. So I'm going to finish these up, and then we'll be done with the Stampin' Blends. And I did give the leaves a second coat with the light granny apple green, and that is how you do the flower with the Stampin' Blends. Now let's do the colored pencil. So for the colored pencils, you need your water brush here. You need a pencil sharpener and a paper towel. I am using Melon Mambo, Daffodil Delight, and Granny Apple Green. So I went ahead and stamped out the flower on my Stamparatus with Stays On. And the first color I'm going to grab is the Melon Mambo. We're going to go ahead and do the big flower first. Now, right now, usually with colored pencils, you want them really sharp. You're supposed to color on their sides, but since we're going to have to lay down a lot of color, I'm leaving the tip kind of blunt, because if you make it sharp, you're just going to snap it anyway. And then I've got my pencil sharpener. I'm using the big hole. What's funny about this is probably from Office Depot. I bought it on a back to school sale for probably $1. And this works great. And the one I got at Michael's for like $5 or $6 is terrible. Anyway, so the Melon Mambo, we're going to do that same thing. We're going to outline. So we're going to press really hard and get a lot of pigment from that colored pencil, the watercolor pencil here. So I'm going to make an outline, and then I'm going to fill it in like that really hard, because what's going to happen is we're going to take the water painter and we're going to pull that ink up and into the rest of that petal. So I'm going to go ahead and outline all my flowers, and I'll be back. Now that you've outlined and colored part of the middle of these flowers in that melon mambo, then take your water painter. Now I usually use my fine tip one that comes in this pack, but my table has eaten it. I have no idea where it's at. And anyway, so there's water in here, and this is just the regular one. And I'm going to start it out on my paper towel. And if you don't have the pointed one, then just take it and kind of make it a little finer pointed like that. Okay, and there's water on the brush. Okay, then I'm going to take the water painter and I'm going to start it in the colored pencil, and I'm going to move it up. So I'm pulling that pigment up, and the more you're doing it, the more it will start to spread, just like this. And we're going to do this to all of the melon mambo flowers. Make sure when you're coloring that in between this spot here on the petal with the pigment going halfway up, that you really lay down a lot of the pigment. If you find your brush is getting dry, just get some more water on it, twist that point if you don't have the pointed one. And that pointed one is really nice. I lost it. It's here somewhere. So I'm just pulling that color up. And it really looks quite pretty. I really like this look the best, actually. So there's a flower. So I'm going to do it to the other two, and I'll be back. And that's how we finish up those flowers. Now take your water painter brush here and just squeeze it and get all that melon mambo off your brush, because now we're going to go ahead and start with Daffodil Delight. Now I'm going to leave the middles open, and I'm going to take my daffodil, I'll get it a little sharper, and I'm going to do the same thing to the rest of these little flowers. Just outline, fill them halfway, and then we'll hit them with the water painter. Now we've done our outline for our yellow. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to make sure there's a lot of water on the end of that tip, and start very gently, because these flowers are really quite small. Start spreading out that daffodil into all those white spaces. And if you accidentally hit the middle of the flower, just take an eraser and erase it. It's a pencil, so it'll come right off. That's kind of nice. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these flowers, and I'll be back again. Now clean off your brush again, get the yellow off, and then go in with Granny Apple Green and give yourself a bit of a point, and do the leaves the same thing. Outline it, fill it in a little bit, and then we'll hit it with water. So I outlined all the leaves. I made sure all the yellow's off my tip, and I made it nice and pointed. And then I'm going to go in with a bunch of water here and pull that color up, just like that. That looks so pretty. Make sure that when you're doing your coloring, you go in and you determine which one is a flower and which one is a leaf. Sometimes, when they're bunched in like this, they get a little confusing. So that's pretty much it. That's the two techniques of coloring these flowers, and I think they look really pretty. Now let's look at some cards, and we're going to make the last one. Here's card number 1, and because this die set has all these like branches and flowers and stuff like that, and I'm not really kind of a branch and flower kind of gal, but I forced myself to do it because that's what they are. So you got the 2 outlines and a bunch of branches, and I showed you that earlier, what they all kind of look like. They look like these. So I decided to make this card. Now what this is, and all the instructions, all the dimensions, all the products that I use are in the body of my video. I also give away the demo card, and there are 5 of them. Actually, there's 6 of them. So if you're a first-time subscriber, like, subscribe, put in the comments you're a first-time subscriber, you want to win the demo card, and your email. You have to give me your email. I can't talk to you without it. So anyway, so what I did with this card, this is a 5.5 by 4.25 in basic white. The background here is that New Horizon paper. If you've seen any of my recent videos, you know I love that paper. I think it is the most versatile paper. So I've got that in the background. Now, these two branches here, and like I said, none of these dies are like opposite. And it's not like you get this one and the exact same one going the other direction. So what I did is I took these and I just kind of flipped them upside down. So these are the same, but just reversed. And these are the same going the same direction. But these are cut in Granny Apple Green. These two on the top are white. And what I tried to do in the beginning is I die cut them in the Granny Apple Green, and then I die cut it like this one. I cut it again in Magenta Madness, and then I cut and I was gonna just glue them on, and it looked terrible. So the way I got around that is that I cut it in white here, and I'm going to take my dark Magenta Madness and I'm going to color the flowers. Now when you color these flowers, make sure you get the top of the paper edge there too, because it'll be white. Now the only tricky part is around the leaves. So there's leaves here and a twig here. So you just kind of have to make a flower out of that. So I'm going to kind of go around the edge here and try to make it so it looks like a flower. Okay, so there's one here. And then I'm going to color all these little flowers here. So there's these little berries and the little berry, and there's a flower. And I'm even putting my fingernail against the flower where it goes into the stem so I don't accidentally color the stem. Okay, and a little berry, little berry, little berry, little flower, and I'm going to do that to the other side. So a little berry, 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 flower, and this is a big flower. I'm going to put my fingernail there. And I'm going to color the rest of these in. I'll be right back. Now I'm going to grab my dark Granny Apple Green and color the rest of this branch. And that's like an easier way than to cut two and then cut the flowers and berries off and then, you know, glue them on and do all that. And, you know, and this just, like I said, I did it and it looked terrible, and this is way better. So I'm just going to color these all up, and I'll be right back. And that's how I colored that branch there. Doesn't that look cool? So I made two of these. I put one on the top, one on the bottom. I made two of these, one on the top and the bottom. This is Hippo and Friends. This is also New Horizon in the peach. So there's a light pink, a dark pink, which I didn't use, and a peach in the New Horizon. And then I bumped this up on dimensionals. I stamped this from the stamp set, and that's in Granny Apple Green. And then on the inside is I did one of the flowers the same way. I just cut it in white and then colored it in. And this is also New Horizon here, and all the, like I said, all the dimensions and everything is in the video, so just go to the video, and then some basic white. So here is card number 1. Here's card number 2, and this card I used the smaller flower using the same technique as the larger one with the Stampin' Blends, and I stamped this with my Stamparatus in StazOn. So that's very important. And then I just used ornate layers and made this beautiful layer around it. And this paper right here is called Pattern Party. And that's if you do a Stampin' class at your house, or you have a demonstrator and you want to host it. This is like host papers in the catalog. And this stuff is awesome. And you get a whole bunch of pages, and if you sell so much in a party, you probably get this free anyway. So this is in Pattern Party. And then on the inside, I use Pattern Party again in Ornate Layers. And this was just really kind of pretty. So that's card number 2. Here's card number 3, which actually is one of my favorites. It's very, very simple. It's just like what we did with the colored pencils, but I took the stamp from, of course, Blessings of Home, and I stamped it in Pacific Point. I mounted it on Pacific Point, and that is just such a simple card, and it's so pretty. And then on the inside, I used rectangle stitched frames and just layered it up in white, Pacific Point, and white. But I really, really like this card. It was actually my favorite card until I made the last one, which the last one we're actually going to make. So this is card number 3. Here's card number 4, and we're going to make this real quick. We're going to start with the inside. It's just basic white, 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. And then I took the rectangle stitched frames and I did the largest and the 3 below it. So Pacific Point white, and then I snailed them together. So I'll do that real quick. Now I'm going to take that colored pencil drawing that we just did, and I take the large outline die. I'm going to tape it on, and I'm going to die cut it. So I want to show you really quick. I'm going to die cut this on the new Stampin' Mini Cut and Emboss machine. This is on sale for the month of March of 2022, and it's normally 60 bucks, and you can get this for $48. And if you're a demonstrator, you still get your 20 or your 25% off. And this thing is killer, and it will do the slim embossing folders, even a 3D embossing folder, which is crazy good, and it fits this great big die. It's great. So here's how we die cut our big flower. Then I'm going to take a piece of Pacific Point, and this is going to be 5 1/4 by 4. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this open weave polished pink ribbon, say that 3 times fast, and I'm going to put a piece about 7 1/2 inches on the very edge of the card right here, and flip it over and put it on like that. And then I'm going to take another piece, and this is like about 6 1/2 inches, and I'm going to also tuck it under the card. So I'm going to do this up, and I'm going to just flip it right under this one. Have it pretty low, and if you need to adjust it, you can always pull it up, and like that. And there's a reason why I'm showing you this card, and I'm going to show you that right now. So I've got those stitched rectangle frames, and this piece is in that New Horizon, and this is basic white. And if you notice, and these are the second and third largest rectangle stitch frames, but if you notice on the card that the white is a lot smaller. And what you can do is you can alter a die. And so I've got my Fresh Friesen that's in the 3rd largest, and I'm going to put it right over the basic white, right so you can see the stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to grab that 2nd largest die, what this was cut in originally, the white was, and I'm going to line it up right behind the white and give it a little edge, just like that. I'm going to tape it down, and I'm going to cut it. I'm going to take this out, of course. Don't send this piece through the cutter, but I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to cut it again. So here it is off the die cutting machine. So I have it hanging off. So this part is going over the edge, so it's blank right here, and I just cut off the L part of the die here. And if you line it up with this, you'll see that it's just like this card. You just have the little bit of white poking out, and that's what we want. So let's start assembly. So I'm going to put that New Horizon over that rectangle we just made, and then I'm going to take some I'm going to take the piece and I'm going to go ahead and put it on the card base. I'm just going to put it right here in the corner like that. And then I'm going to take my flower and put a bunch of dimensionals on. So I'm all dimensionaled up. I'm going to put the flower on, and then I'm going to grab my these are the rhinestone wave basic jewels. They're really, really pretty. And I'm going to put on some of the dark blue ones here in the corner and a big one up here. So that's how you make this card. Oh, we got to put it on the card front. So go ahead and put it on your card base. And now we're going to make one more card, and I'm going to use a really cool technique that you might have seen in one of my other videos. This is card number 6, and this one's really special. I'm going to show you something really cool. If you haven't seen this video, then this is definitely one to watch. There's something really unique about this card, and that is I painted it. I painted it with Stampin' Up! Ink. So here's that flower we did earlier with the Stampin' Blends. And let me show you I did this before. I did it on a daffodil card. And this is from December 16, 2021, where I did that same technique. And if you notice in this card, you can't, this is not Pacific Point paper. This is white paper. I stamped on white paper the flower, just like we did here, okay? And then what I've done is I have masked this off. So I'm going to show you. So here is a flower. I'm just going to use this as an example. It's one of my ones that I tried to do another painting technique and it didn't work. I'm going to make a mask out of this, but I'm going to use my Brother Scan and Cut. And there is a full tutorial that I've done on my Brother Scan and Cut. It's dated September 12th, 2021. It's called Brother Scan and Cut Basic Tutorial with Stampin' Up! And I'm using poinsettia petals in that one. So you can refer to that video on how to cut this on your Brother Scan and Cut. But you can also fussy cut it as well. But if you have a Brother Scan and Cut, the first thing you want to do is you want to close any gap, because the Brother Scan and Cut is a scanner. It scans it in and then it cuts an image. So but it's going to cut a complete image. So it's going to do everything on the outside, but if there is a break in a line, it's going to go inside of it. So it has to be a complete like circle. So the first thing I'm going to go and do is kind of reinforce all the lines here. I'm just going to go over it because a lot of these are really kind of light. So I'm going to go over the whole image, and then I'm going to put it in my Brother Scan and Cut and scan it and cut it out. Because if you die cut it, it's going to look like this, and you're going to have a border. And we don't want a border when we're masking, because there'll be a border here, and then we're going to have to fill it in, and you're going to see where you filled it in. You want a complete mask. And of course, I've already done that. So I went ahead, and if you make a mask, you might as well make 2. Because if you have a Brother Scan and Cut, you know, as soon as it cuts it out, you can just take the paper off, put another piece on, and cut it again. So that's what I did. But reinforce all the lines and cut this out. If you don't have a Brother Scan and Cut, go ahead and just fussy cut a mask out. Once you've got your mask, line it up here. Make sure that it didn't cut anything off or you cut anything off. And then turn it over, and you're going to be using some of this teal Tombow tape. It's the removable adhesive, and this is great for masking because it'll come off and it won't leave any residue. If there's a little bit of glue, you can just rub it right off and it's fine. But before you tape it, you got to make sure you got the right side. So I'm going to tape down this, and when I tape this down, I want to make sure I'm getting to the edge, because we want this to stay down and not leak any of that blue underneath. So when we're doing this, I'm going over the edges here, and it's going to leave some webbing. So go ahead and take your pick tool here and get rid of some of that webbing here. But you do want it to the edge so you can hold it down as much as possible. So I've got that all taped up, and I'm going to put it right over that image. Now, when I did this before, I didn't color it in first, so this will be a first for me. So I've got it completely covered. You might see a little bit of outline, but that's okay. Now the fun part. This is going to blow your mind. Okay, if you just use refill ink and try to paint something, it won't work. But it will work if you add in refill Whisper White. Whisper White is not a water-based ink, where all the other stuff except for StazOn is a water-based ink. So I obviously did this before and I didn't clean it out, but I'm going to put like 4 or 5 drops of the refill in here, and then I'm going to put in a squish. There's no measurement, about that much of the Whisper White. So I'm changing it to a hybrid ink, and I'm going to mix it up, mix it real good and get it the consistency you want. And if you think you're going to need a little bit more, go ahead and add it. It's not like you're going to waste that much of it. And so I'm going to just put in a little bit more just to make sure that I have enough to cover the whole piece. So I'm going to mix it up again, just so you're not, mixing 2 different colors. So you want to get one color the first time. Okay, and I'm all mixed up. Now I'm using kind of a short bristled brush. You don't want anything with too long of bristles. And I'm also using a real micro brush. This is a Artist Loft 3/0 Sorrento. So get a really, really fine brush and a brush like this and a paper towel. And we're going to need a piece of scratch paper as well. And I just dripped on my piece. That's awful. Anyway, it gets a whole bunch of ink here, and you want to go from the mask out. Okay? Don't go mask in. You don't want to have the ink go under that mask. And as you're going through here, hold it down. And you might get a little messy. That's okay. Make sure you get those edges. And we're going to go from the mask out, and we are painting this. Isn't this cool? I love this technique. That's why I'm doing it again. It's like, I don't know if everyone's seen that Daffodil video, but it's like totally cool. And I don't know. I haven't seen anybody do it. I just kind of did it, trying to figure out how to paint with the Stampin' Up! Inks. So I came up with this. So if anybody else did too, it's just a coinky dink. So I'm going to paint this whole thing. I'm trying to use one long stroke here, so I'm not giving an unevenness to it. So when you get to the ends that are really long, try to keep it one stroke. Hold down those ends because you don't want it to bleed through. And turn it as you need to. Okay. And you will get a little messy. That's the fun part. You're going to get messy. That's it. Holding this down. Make sure you do the edge. Holding it down. Okay, now check it. You don't want to go too in to the mask because you don't want it to bleed under. Okay, just make sure all the main parts are smooth. Make sure there's not like a doggy hair in it. That happens to me a lot, as I have 2 doggies. Okay. And now we're going to take the mask off, and then we're going to wait. We're going to let it dry. Now, it might not look so great now because we haven't finished it. So don't worry about it. Take a finger that doesn't have ink on it. Okay. Now we're going to have this sit like a long time. I might even let this sit overnight. So I'm going to let this sit and I'll be back. I'm back. So it's the next day, and before we finish up doing this, because we need to finish this, let's go ahead and put the inside together. And all I did was some Pacific Point, 5.5 by 4.25, and some basic white, 475 by 3.5. And then I took a piece of the Pacific Point, it's like a 1/2 inch by the 3.5. And we're just going to put it up like that, and a piece of basic black, 1/4 inch by 3.5, and that's the inside of the card, so that's really quick. So let me show you what we're gonna do here. Once I took that mask off, I can see if there was any bleeding or anything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this paint. Now I haven't done anything with it. It sat all overnight, and guess what? It's still fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that real fine tip brush, and I'm going to go and fix the little white edges from the mask. So I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing, and I'll be right back. I do want to show you a few things while I'm just fixing the edges here. Now the mask bled through on a leaf, and I'm just going to go ahead and cover it up with the blue because that's no big deal. And then also here, these little leaves, there's one that goes down right in the middle here. And I filled that space with blue. There's also some places down here, and this is what's going to make it neat because you know that there's going to be some blue spaces inside here. So I'm going to do a couple of blue ones right here, so it looks like, you know, it's definitely on top. So I'm just going to do that, and let me finish up and I'll be back. And there we go. I did all the little white spaces. It's still a little wet around the edge there, so I'm not going to touch it too much. And I'm going to go ahead. Actually, what I need to do first is I need to stamp the sentiment, which also needs to be on the Stamparetta. So let me do that, and then we'll put it together. Now I've got all the white filled in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp the sentiment. So we've got this thank you here, and I'm going to use my Stamparatus, and I'm just going to line it up here. And if you say, hey Noreen, are all your magnets for your Stamparatus broken? And I would say, yes they are. I have broken all my magnets. I actually have a new one, but I'm so cheap I don't want to pick it out of there. So anyway, let's go ahead and use StazOn, of course. So we want it to be nice and dark, and make sure that it gets a good stamp over that blue. And there we go. Now all we have to do is nail it up and add our bling. Now this is still a little wet around those edges that I just fixed, but we're going to go ahead and put it on here. Don't put this in an envelope for another day because of those edges. And then I'm just going to bling it up here a little bit. I'm going to use the Bumblebee trinkets, and I'm going to put one of those paper pumpkin little glue dots. If you have a paper pumpkin, keep these because these are awesome, especially for these kind of trinkets. But if you don't have a paper pumpkin, then you could just use regular glue dots. And then just the matte black dots. And that's the card. So please like and subscribe. And put in the comments if you're a new subscriber, if you want to win the demo card, because I give them all away. So anyway, that'll do it for me. Thanks. Bye.